On a space station where molecular cuisine reigns supreme, a human chef's primitive smoke cooking is dismissed as barbaric. But when an alien dignitary's daughter refuses all food, his slow-smoked ribs teach the galaxy what no formula can replicate. The language of love cooked into every bite. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. And if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button because tomorrow's episode is even more unbelievable than this one. The Nexus station hangs in the void like a jewel someone forgot to polish, its 7 rings spinning slow enough to mock the passage of time. Through crystalline observation decks, 100 species watch stars blur into ribbons of light, sipping nutrient solutions calibrated to their biochemistry down to the molecule. In the grand atrium, holographic menus shimmer in 17 languages, each dish a mathematical equation solved by machines that have never tasted grief or joy. The air smells of nothing, filtered 12 times per rotation until even memory cannot cling to it. And in the bowels of the station, where cargo bays yawn dark and oil-stained, smoke curls against the rules of this sterile place like a prayer spoken in the wrong church. Gabriel Stone kneels beside a battered steel drum he has beaten into the shape of devotion, feeding it applewood chips with the care of a man lighting candles for the dead. The smoke rises thick and silver, carrying the scent of earth summers and backyards where his daughter once laughed. Before the accident, before the silence. His hands are scarred from burns no medical bay could erase, the skin tight and shiny across his knuckles. He wears a stained apron over maintenance coveralls. Inside the drum, ribs glisten under a bark of spices he has hoarded for 2 years, smuggled in vitamin containers. The meat has been rubbing for 18 hours, smoking for 6 more, the fat rendering slow as a sunset. Gabriel does not check a timer. He knows by the way the smoke bends. Footsteps echo in the corridor beyond. Security patrols pass every 43 minutes, and Gabriel has learned to bank the fire low when their boots strike metal. But tonight someone stops. The door hisses open, spilling sterile white light across shadows. Pip steps through, the young kitchen apprentice from the diplomatic galley. She freezes when she sees the smoker. Gabriel lifts the lid with a hooked rod, and smoke billows out like a ghost escaping confinement. The ribs inside glisten, mahogany and black, edges crisp to leather that has been loved into softness. Pip breathes in, and her eyes flood. She has not smelled smoke in 4 years. Gabriel plates 3 ribs on a chipped ceramic dish and slides it toward her without a word. She lifts one with shaking hands. The bark cracks under her teeth, and the meat pulls away from the bone with tenderness. She chews slowly, and a sound escapes her throat, half sob, half laughter. Gabriel nods once and turns. Back to the drum. There are 11 more hours on these ribs before they are ready. 17 floors above, Chef Trivane presides over evening service with mathematical precision. His species, the Solvari, possess 6 articulated fingers and skin that shifts through color spectrums. Tonight he is deep violet, satisfaction bordering on smugness. Before him, dishes assemble under robotic arms, protein sculptures defying gravity, foams tasting of starlight. Each plate is a formula. Trivane does not cook, he architects. Servers glide between tables, where diplomats sample creations that will never be replicated. But Pip leans against the kitchen wall, licking her fingers where smoke still clings. She knows nothing Trivane makes will ever matter the way those ribs mattered. She knows, and she is terrified. Because if the station discovers what Gabriel Stone is doing in the cargo bay, they will erase him, and the smoke will be filtered away into nothing. The medical wing occupies the station's 3rd ring, where gravity holds at 0.85 Earth standard, and the walls glow with bioluminescent panels that pulse in rhythm with patient vitals. In room 17, a child is disappearing. Kessara lies in a suspension bed that adjusts itself every 12 minutes to prevent pressure sores. Her wasting body can no longer resist. She is 7 years old by her species count, which translates to something like 9 in human years, though the math never quite aligns. Her skin, naturally a pale turquoise that should shimmer with health, has faded to the color of ice over deep water. Her eyes, twin amber pools that should spark with curiosity, stare at the ceiling with the exhausted patience of someone who has stopped expecting change. Ambassador Velina sits beside the bed, her larger frame folded into a chair designed for species half her size. She has not left this room for 6 days, except to attend mandatory council sessions. And even then, she returns within the hour. Her own skin has dulled with stress, the luminescent patterns that usually dance across her shoulders now static and gray. She holds Kessara's hand, careful not to press the fragile bones that show too clearly through translucent flesh. The door whispers open, and Dr. Yoth enters with the heavy tread of someone delivering news they have already delivered too many times. He is Korvathi, barrel-chested with triple-jointed arms and a face that folds into expressions humans find difficult to read. But exhaustion translates across all species. The latest formula, he says, gesturing to a tray floating behind him. On it sits a crystalline bowl filled with an opalescent liquid that shifts through colors like oil on water. Nutritionally complete, optimized for her specific metabolism. Flavor notes designed to trigger ancestral food memories. Velina looks at the bowl, then at her daughter. Kessara's eyes do not move from the ceiling. She will not eat it, Velina says, her voice scraped, raw. We must try, Yoth insists, though his conviction sounds practiced rather than felt. He moves to the bedside and tilts the bowl toward Kessara's lips. The child turns her head away with the last reserve of energy she possesses. The liquid slides down the side of her face, pooling on the pillow. Yoth sets the bowl down with more force than intended. The sound echoes sharp as judgment. 69 refusals, he says. We are losing her, Ambassador, not to disease, not to injury, to choice. Velina's hands clench. She is a child. She does not choose to die. No, Yoth agrees, but she chooses not to live on what we offer. There is a difference. He pauses. On my world, we have an old saying, food without soul is merely fuel, and fuel alone will not kindle a fire that has gone cold. Velina looks at him sharply. What are you suggesting? Yoth shakes his head. I am suggesting nothing. I am observing that perhaps we solve the wrong problem. We feed her body. But what feeds the part of her that decides whether living is worth the effort? The question hangs in the air like smoke, and neither of them has an answer. In the corridor outside, a scent drifts past, so faint it barely registers, something rich and dark, carrying heat and time, something that should not exist here. Kessara's nose twitches. Her eyes shift toward the door. For the first time in 69 meals, the child is hungry. The ventilation system on Nexus Station is a marvel of engineering, capable of scrubbing particulates down to 0.001 microns and cycling the entire atmosphere every 8 hours. It neutralizes toxins, balances oxygen ratios for 73 different species, and eliminates odors before they can travel more than 12 meters from their source. It has never failed in the station's 19-year operational history. But tonight, something slips through. The smoke from Gabriel's drum finds a maintenance duct that was sealed improperly during the last rotation, a gap no wider than a fingernail, where 2 panels meet at an angle the installation crew deemed acceptable. The smoke, patient as water-finding cracks in stone, seeps through that gap and into the station's circulatory system, bypassing 3 filter arrays and riding the thermal currents upward through rings 2 and 3. In Medical Room 17, Kessara's eyes snap open. Her head turns toward the ventilation grate above her bed with a speed that makes Ambassador Velina flinch. The child's nostrils flare, her chest rising with the first deep breath she has taken in days. Doctor. Yoth freezes, his medical scanner hovering forgotten in his hand. Kessara, Velina whispers, afraid to hope. The girl does not answer. She is listening with her nose, following a thread of scent that speaks a language her species should not understand. Her people, the Thessari, evolved on a world of processed nutrition, their food cultivated in sterile vats for 12,000 generations. Their olfactory systems atrophied over millennia, became decorative rather than functional. They can detect danger signals, pheromones, little else. They certainly cannot smell smoke from 17 floors away. But Kessara smells it. The applewood char, the rendered fat, the spices that have no name in her language. And beneath it all, something else. Something that makes her hollow chest ache with a feeling she has no words for. She sits up, and the suspension bed chimes in alarm. Velina reaches for her, but Kessara is already swinging her skeletal legs over the side, her bare feet touching the cold floor for the first time in a week. Kessara, no, Velina says, but there is no command in her voice, only wonder. The child stands, swaying, her body remembering how to bear its own weight. She takes one step toward the door, then another. Dr. Yoth moves to intercept her, but Velina raises a hand to stop him. They watch as Kessara crosses the room with the determined shuffle of someone following a star. Only they can see. The door opens, and she steps into the corridor. The scent is stronger here, a river she can wade into. She turns left without hesitation toward the maintenance shafts that lead down into the station's forgotten places. Behind her, Velina and Dr. Yoth exchange a glance. Then, without a word, they follow. They follow the dying child who has refused 69 perfect meals as she chases the smell of something primitive and raw. Something that burns. Something that remembers. Something that, against all logic and biology and the filtered air of this perfect station, smells like home. And in the cargo bay far below, Gabriel Stone pulls the ribs from the drum, unaware that someone is coming. Someone who needs what he has made more than she needs to breathe. Kessara moves through the maintenance shafts like a sleepwalker following a dream, her small hands gripping rails that line the narrow passages. The metal is cold enough to sting, but she does not let go. Velina and Dr. Yoth trail behind, ducking under low-hanging conduits and stepping over cable bundles. The ambassador's robes catch on a pipe junction, and she tears the fabric free without slowing. They descend 4 levels, passing through sections most passengers never see. The walls here are unfinished metal, streaked with oxidation. The lighting flickers, and the air tastes of machine oil. But underneath, growing stronger with every turn, is the smoke. They round a corner into a cargo bay where crates stack against the far wall. In the center, Gabriel Stone stands beside his drum, wrapping ribs in foil with the reverence of a man handling sacred texts. He does not hear them approach. Kessara stops 3 meters away, legs trembling but standing. Gabriel looks up, hands freezing. The child stares at him with eyes holding more hunger than any living thing should carry. Her skin is translucent, her body so thin he can count her ribs through her medical gown. She looks like his daughter did in those last weeks. Please, Kessara whispers. It is the first thing she has said in 6 days. Gabriel glances past her to the ambassador and doctor, both stopped at the threshold. Velina's face shows desperate hope and terror. Dr. Yoth's scanner chirps softly, recording impossible vitals. The child has walked 17 floors on a body shutting down an hour ago. Gabriel looks back at Kessara. He unwraps one rib and sets it on a clean plate, the bark glistening. He crosses the distance and kneels to her eye level. It's hot, he says quietly. Be careful. Kessara reaches for it, fingers shaking so badly she nearly drops it twice. Gabriel steadies her hands with his own, guiding the meat to her mouth. She bites, eyes closing. The bark cracks, the meat yields. Smoke and spice flood her senses. She chews slowly, and a sound emerges, something between sob and sigh. Velina gasps, hand flying to her mouth. The luminescent patterns on Kessara's skin, dark for weeks, flicker once. Then again, then hold, pulsing with the rhythm of a heart, remembering why it beats. The child devours the rib to bone. Gabriel watches as color seeps back into her cheeks, like dawn touching frost. She looks at him with eyes no longer hollow, and he sees his daughter's smile in the curve of her mouth. Then footsteps echo from the corridor. Sharp, synchronized, angry. Chef Trivane appears at the threshold, flanked by 2 station security officers. His skin blazes crimson, 6 fingers curling into fists. Behind him, Pip stands frozen, guilt across her face. Unauthorized food preparation, Trivane announces, voice sharp as breaking glass. Contamination of station atmosphere. Endangerment of a diplomatic dependent. He points at Gabriel with all 6 fingers. You are under arrest. His eyes fix on the half-eaten rib in Kessara's hands. And that primitive contamination you fed her will be analyzed as evidence of what your species calls cooking and what civilized worlds call poison. The security officers step forward, restraint fields humming to life in their gloved hands. Gabriel rises slowly from his crouch, hands visible, palms open. He knows how this works. He has been caught before, warned twice, fined once. This time they will not simply confiscate his equipment. This time there is a child involved, a diplomat's child, and the station does not forgive risks taken with ambassadorial blood. But before the officers can close the distance, Kessara moves. She steps between Gabriel and the guards, her skeletal frame suddenly solid as iron. The half-eaten rib bone still clutched in her hand like a scepter. Her voice, unused for days, cracks as she speaks. No. The single word stops everyone. Velina takes a sharp breath. Dr. Yoth's scanner falls silent. Even Trivane's crimson skin flickers toward orange, surprise bleeding through rage. Kessara turns to face her mother, and tears stream down her face, cutting tracks through skin that has begun to glow again. "Mama," she says, and the word breaks on a sob. "Mama, I can taste you." Velina moves forward on instinct, dropping to her knees before her daughter. "What do you mean, little star?" Kessara holds up the bone, reverent as prayer. "This food remembers. It remembers hands. It remembers time. It remembers." She struggles for the word, her young mind reaching for concepts her language has no frame for. It remembers love. The cargo bay falls into silence, so complete that the hum of the station's gravity generators becomes audible. "Doctor." Yoth steps closer, scanner raised, no longer recording vitals but analyzing the air around the child. His triple-jointed arms move in patterns of professional confusion. "Impossible," he murmurs. "Her neural chemistry is. There are compounds present that should not exist. Oxytocin analogs. Serotonin variants. Her brain is producing bonding chemicals in response to food." He looks at Gabriel, then at the drum, then back at his scanner, as if it has betrayed him. How? Gabriel does not answer. He is watching Kessara, watching the way she holds the bone as if it might dissolve. He knows what she is tasting because he put it there. Not intentionally, not through any formula or technique, but through the 6 hours he spent feeding wood chips into flame, through the 18 hours before that rubbing spices into meat with hands that remember holding his daughter's hand, through the act of making something for someone who needs it, even if that someone is a ghost, even if that someone is gone. The food remembers because he cannot forget. This is emotional contamination, Trivane says, but his voice has lost its edge. Food is nutrition, data, measured response. Not this. This. He gestures at Kessara, at the tears on her face, at the way her skin glows brighter with each passing moment. Not this chaos. Kessara looks at him with eyes older than her years. "Your food never made me cry," she says softly. "It never made me feel anything at all." She turns back to Gabriel. "More," she whispers. "Please, I want to remember more." And Gabriel, watching a child choose life over perfection, unwraps another rib. The culinary concordance convenes in a chamber shaped like an inverted bell, its walls lined with holographic displays showing food standards from across 9 systems. At the center hangs the Codex Alimentarius, a sphere of liquid crystal that pulses with every regulation ever ratified by the Council. 23 judges sit in a crescent above the floor, representing species who have spent millennia engineering sustenance into science. Gabriel Stone stands in the defendant's circle, still wearing his stained apron. They did not let him change. Trivane insisted the filth was part of the evidence, proof of contamination. Magistrate Kirel presides from the highest seat. his form obscured behind a veil of refracted light that bends around his body like heat shimmer. His species prefers anonymity in judgment, believing faces bias, verdicts. His voice, when it comes, sounds like wind through canyon stone. Gabriel Stone, human, maintenance classification. You stand accused of unauthorized food preparation, atmospheric contamination, and biological experimentation on a minor diplomatic dependent. How do you answer? Gabriel looks up at the faceless shimmer. I cooked ribs for a starving child, he says. That's all. Laughter ripples through the gallery where spectators watch from behind glass barriers. Trivane stands at the prosecution platform, his skin a smug purple. That's all, he says, as if feeding unregulated organic matter to a Kessara child is trivial, as if smoke damage to 7 ventilation arrays is minor, as if emotional contamination of food is anything but primitive superstition. He gestures, and a hologram blooms above the floor. Molecular chains spiral in 3 dimensions, labeled with compounds the human eye cannot pass. Analysis of the consumed material shows presence of heterocyclic amines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and advanced glycation end products, all proven carcinogens, all banned under Concordant Statute 479. Murmurs of approval from the benches. Carell's shimmer brightens. And yet, a voice calls from the back of the chamber. The child lives. The room turns. Ambassador Velina stands in the observer section, Kessara beside her. The girl's skin glows steady now, her eyes clear. She wears formal robes instead of a medical gown, and she stands without trembling. Dr. Yoth rises beside them. If I may address the concordance, he says. Carell's shimmer pulses once, granting permission. Yoth descends to the floor, his scanner held like a sacred text. I have treated Kessara for 42 days. In that time, she refused 69 meals formulated specifically for her biology. Each meal was nutritionally complete. Each meal was optimized by algorithms that have fed trillions across known space without incident. Each meal failed. He projects his own data above the floor, vitals, timelines, the slow descent of a body giving up. Then she consumed this. He gestures toward Gabriel. Unregulated, unoptimized, made by hand in unsanitary conditions. And within 20 minutes, her neural chemistry stabilized. Her cellular regeneration began. Her will to live returned. He pauses, letting the data speak. I cannot explain it with any model I know, but I can observe it. This food contains something our perfection lacks. Trivane's skin flares red. Superstition, emotion is not medicine. Then why? Yoth asks quietly. Did medicine fail where emotion succeeded? The question hangs in the air like smoke, and no one has an answer. Carell's shimmer darkens, and the room waits. Magistrate Carell's shimmer pulses 3 times, calling for order as the chamber erupts in argument. Species who have not agreed on anything in decades suddenly find common cause in their confusion. Some demand Gabriel's immediate conviction. Others call for further analysis. A Korvathi senator suggests the child be quarantined and deprogrammed. Velina's hand tightens on Kessara's shoulder, and the girl presses closer to her mother. Carell raises a hand, and silence falls like a guillotine blade. The concordance will hear testimony from the analytical division, he announces. A side door opens, and 3 figures enter, wheeling equipment that hums with processing power. The lead analyst is Vayari, her bioluminescent skin patterning in complex equations as she works. She approaches the center platform and bows to Carell's shimmer. Magistrate, we have completed full spectroscopic analysis of the consumed material. She activates a display, and the molecular structure from Trivane's presentation reappears. But now, threaded through it like veins of gold, are compounds highlighted in amber. These signatures were not present in our initial scan. They only revealed themselves under quaternary resonance imaging. She magnifies one strand. This is a peptide chain we have no reference for. It does not appear in any biological database across 9 systems. Trivane leans forward, smugness returning. Unknown compounds. You prove my case. The human introduced foreign contaminants. The analyst's skin flickers, patterns shifting to convey something between confusion and wonder. Not contaminants, Chef Trivane. Catalysts. She pulls up another image. This compound mimics the molecular structure of Kessara maternal enzymes, the ones present in their ancestral feeding practices before industrial food cultivation. Enzymes their species has not produced naturally in 11,000 years. Gasps ripple through the chamber. Even Kurel's shimmer wavers. How is that possible? He asks. The analyst shakes her head. We don't know. The ribs were cooked at temperatures that should denature all complex proteins. The smoking process should eliminate any biological markers. Yet somehow, these compounds survived. More than survived, they intensified. She looks at Gabriel, her skin patterning in shades of deep blue, the color her species uses for reverence. We found 7 distinct molecular signatures, each corresponding to emotional regulatory compounds in 7 different species, as if the food adapted itself to whoever needed it most. Trivane's skin flashes between colors, unable to settle. Impossible. Food does not adapt. Food does not choose. And yet, the analyst says, pulling up a final image, embedded in the bark's crystalline structure, we found this. The chamber falls silent. On the display, arranged in patterns too precise to be random, are microscopic formations that look almost like writing, not words. Something older. Something that existed before language needed letters. The shapes pulse with stored heat, with time, with the memory of hands that moved with purpose. We believe, the analyst says carefully, that patience itself became part of the molecular structure. That care became measurable. That 6 hours of attention created bonds no machine can replicate. She turns to the concordance. We have analyzed 10,000 foods from across known space. None have shown this. Her voice drops to something like awe. This food remembers being made, and it remembers why. Magistrate Kurel's shimmer dims to near transparency, a sign his species uses when processing information that challenges fundamental beliefs. The chamber holds its collective breath. 23 judges lean forward in their seats. Trivane opens his mouth to object, but no words emerge. The evidence hovers above them all. Those impossible molecular patterns that spell out something science has spent millennia trying to eliminate. The human variable. Finally, Kurel speaks. We will hear from the child. Velina stiffens, her arms instinctively protective around Kessara's shoulders. She is 7 years old. Magistrate. She has been through enough. She is the only witness who can testify to the effect of the food. Kurel responds, his voice gentler than before. We will not compel her. But if she is willing, we will listen. Kessara looks up at her mother, and something passes between them. Some understanding that transcends words. Velina nods once, slowly, and releases her daughter. Kessara walks to the center platform, her small form dwarfed by the machinery and holograms surrounding her. She does not look afraid. She looks like someone who has already faced the worst thing and survived. A technician adjusts the amplification field so her voice will carry. She glances back at Gabriel, who has not moved from his circle. He nods to her. Barely perceptible. She turns to face Kurel's shimmer. I stopped eating. Kessara begins, her voice clear as crystal. Because nothing tasted like anything. I know the food was good. Everyone told me it was perfect. The doctor said my body needed it. But when I put it in my mouth, it felt like swallowing numbers. She pauses, searching for words. It felt like being alone in a room full of people. Like everyone was talking, but nobody was saying anything. Velina's eyes glisten. Doctor. Yoth has stopped recording. Simply listening. Then I smelled the smoke. Kessara continues. And it smelled like something that knew I existed. Like something that had been waiting. When I ate the rib, I tasted. She stops, frustrated by the limits of her vocabulary. I tasted someone missing someone. I tasted hands that were tired but kept working. I tasted someone who knew what it was like to lose something and kept cooking anyway. She looks directly at Gabriel now, her amber eyes luminous. I tasted my mother, even though my mother didn't make it. I tasted being worried about. I tasted mattering to someone. The chamber is so quiet that the hum of the gravity generators sounds like thunder. Your food didn't just feed my body, Kessara says, turning back to the judges. It fed the part of me that wanted to leave, the part that thought maybe if I got small enough, the hurting would stop. Her voice cracks, but she does not look away. His food told me that hurting is what happens when you're alive, and being alive is worth it. She steps back from the amplification field. Velina is openly weeping now. Half the observers are as well. Even Trivane's skin has faded to ash gray, the color of someone whose certainty has crumbled. And in his circle, Gabriel Stone stands with tears on his scarred hands, watching a child teach a galaxy what he has always known, that food without love is just molecules. But love measured in smoke and time can bring the dead back to breathing. Magistrate Curel's shimmer brightens, then fades, then brightens again like a star struggling against collapse. The other judges shift in their seats, mandibles clicking, appendages gesturing, skin colors rippling through spectrums that signal uncertainty. The Codex Alimentarius at the chamber's heart pulses erratically, its algorithms, attempting to process testimony that contains no measurable data. Finally, Curel speaks, and his voice carries the weight of something breaking. 32,000 years, he says. That is how long the Concordance has standardized food across known space. 32,000 years of optimization, efficiency, safety, perfection. He pauses, and in 32,000 years, we never asked if perfection was enough. The chamber stirs. Trivane rises, desperation bleeding into his voice. Magistrate, we cannot allow sentiment to override science. One anecdotal success does not invalidate millennia of progress. But Curel's shimmer turns toward him, and even through the refraction, his displeasure is palpable. One child lived, Chef Trivane. One child chose existence over your formulas. That is not anecdotal. That is catastrophic. He addresses the full assembly now. How many others have we lost? How many beings across how many worlds have simply stopped eating because we engineered the soul out of sustenance? A Vayari judge speaks up, her patterns flickering nervously. We have 14 billion fed daily across 9 systems. Our efficiency rating is 99.7%. And what? Asks another judge. A creature of crystalline form whose voice chimes like broken glass. Is our rating for joy? Silence. The question hangs unanswered because no algorithm has ever measured it. No database has ever tracked it. Joy, like grief, like love, like the smoke that saved Kessara, exists outside the metrics that built this civilization. Dr. Yoth steps forward without being called. I have practiced medicine for 40 years, he says. I have seen bodies healed and minds stabilized. But I have also seen a phenomenon we classify as failure to thrive. Beings who should live, who have every resource, who simply choose not to. We call it psychological, aberrant. We medicate it. He looks at Gabriel. Perhaps we have been treating the wrong problem. Perhaps they were not failing to thrive. Perhaps we failed to give them a reason. The words land like stones in still water, ripples spreading outward. Judges who came to convict a human for breaking regulations now sit in the wreckage of their own assumptions. Curel's shimmer stabilizes, taking on a deeper hue. This concordance was built to protect life, he says slowly. But life is not the same as living. He turns toward Gabriel's circle. Gabriel Stone, you have broken 14 statutes. You have contaminated station air. You have prepared food without certification. By every law we hold, you are guilty. Gabriel nods, accepting what comes. However, Corel continues, and the word echoes like thunder. By every law that matters, you are necessary. Trivane's skin flashes through colors too quickly to read. The concordance cannot simply ignore its own rules. He protests weakly. No. Corel agrees, but it can recognize when its rules have forgotten their purpose. He raises his hand, and the codex dims. Gabriel Stone, you are released. And this concordance has work to do. 3 months after the trial, the Nexus Station installs its first legal smoker in what was once a molecular cuisine prep station. The equipment arrives in crates stamped with concordance approval seals, but Gabriel ignores the gleaming new drum and keeps using his battered old one. The new one has never known patience. It has never been fed by hands that remember loss. He sets it aside for someone else to learn on and tends his fire the way he always has, with wood chips and time and silence. The changes come slowly, the way smoke seeps through cracks. Chef Trivane no longer presides over the diplomatic galley. He requested reassignment to agricultural research, where he studies heirloom seeds from abandoned worlds. He does not cook anymore, but he is learning what grew before cultivation became engineering. He sends Gabriel messages sometimes, questions about flavor that have no mathematical answers. Gabriel replies when he can, though words have never been his language. Ambassador Velina established the first interspecies culinary exchange program, recruiting cooks from worlds that never abandoned their fires. The station's lower decks now smell of 100 different smokes, each one carrying memories of home. Kessara comes to the cargo bay every 3rd day. She sits on an overturned crate and watches Gabriel work. Asking questions, he answers with gestures more than words. She is learning to tend fire, to judge meat by touch, to understand that cooking is conversation between hunger and care. Her skin glows steady now, and she has gained 12 pounds. Dr. Yoth monitors her weekly, documenting recovery that should not exist. Other children come too, dragged along by parents who heard the story. Species who evolved past taste buds find them returning after 3 meals. Bodies that rejected food for months suddenly remember appetite. Gabriel teaches them what he knows, though teaching feels too formal a word for what happens. He shows them how to wait, how to feed fire, how to trust that meat will speak when it is ready. Some learn quickly, others never do. That is fine too. Not everyone is meant to cook, but everyone is meant to eat something that remembers being made with hands. The Concordance publishes new guidelines, not replacing the old standards, but adding a second category: nutritional sufficiency and existential sufficiency. Foods that feed bodies and foods that feed the reasons bodies want to keep breathing. The regulations are clumsy, trying to measure what cannot be measured, but they are trying. Pip runs her own kitchen now, sanctioned and legal, serving food that makes diplomats weep into their plates. She credits Gabriel, but he shakes his head. She learned by wanting to remember Earth. That wanting is the recipe. On quiet nights, when the station dims to artificial darkness, Gabriel pulls ribs from his drum and wraps them carefully. He climbs to the observation deck where stars blur into light and places a plate on the bench. For his daughter, who taught him that love does not stop when breathing does, that some things remain in the smoke, that what we make with care becomes a language grief can speak, and somewhere in the filtered air of this perfect station, the smoke curls upward, carrying memory into a future that has finally learned to taste it.